Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Yuma. Yuma graduated last year from a Bachelor of Computer Science and is now working as an embedded systems engineer at a tier 1 company. I'll let him tell you what that means. You can put your questions for Yuma in the chat as we go, and I'll ask them at the end. Or you can send your questions anonymously to Tan, who will put his email in the chat, and I'll read that out as soon as he's done that. We're going to record today's session, so please turn off your video if you prefer not to be captured. And as we said, there is the option to send questions in anonymously if you'd prefer not, and if you'd prefer to keep the source of the questions private. So if you would like to ask questions anonymously, you can send those via email to tarntran@uq.com.au. I'll spell that. That's TARN dot T. Hold on. I'll start this again. TARN.TRAN@uqu.com.au. Now I'll hand over to Yuma, who will tell us how he intends to run this talk today.
Okay, I like to do things pretty freestyle, but I have this bit of a slide deck so I can show you what I have been doing in parallel with my academic journey. So it gives you an idea of, some of the pluses you may be able to collect as you were going through your journey at UQ. So that means participation in various programs, that exist at UQ or elsewhere, because all of these will be helpful for your CV. But yeah, I'll start with the slides. Is that okay, Alicia?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, so, all right, let's start. So hi, everyone. My name is Yuma Decaux. I am formerly a French citizen. I've become an Australian citizen. Yeah, I'm visually impaired, so I've had 2 lives. And the image that you see here kind of represents the way I felt at the beginning when I lost my sight. So just like the nomad, I've got my guide dogs and things like that instead of camels, and I'd be walking around a desert of images because obviously when you're blind, there's no imagery. But as in the picture, you might be able to see on the sand dunes that there are signals, which are basically the shape of the wind that goes through the sand dunes. And, perhaps there's some intuition in that. And perhaps there's also some intuition in the position of the stars in the sky, including the sun, because the sun kind of radiates some heat, so I can know what time of the day it is. And so my journey just continued that way, bit by bit. I started picking up my pieces after I lost my sight completely at age 30, after an explosion while I was working as an expat in Cambodia. So after I lost my sight, I went to New Zealand because my girlfriend at the time had a job over there, and she told me it might be better we, moved out from Cambodia. And so I left my position as a director of department, and I worked through transitioning everything so that another person can take the responsibility and I could move on. Once in New Zealand, I took some bridging classes, math classes, and then I got an invitation to, with a temporary visa to Australia. And so I applied for uni at UQ. Well, multiple different universities across Australia, but UQ was my first choice. I got it. And then that's when my uni journey as a blind student officially started. So through that time, I guess, I encountered a lot of difficulties in terms of accessibility, especially in the STEM subjects, because everything is pretty much graphs and diagrams and, those kind of things to help you kind of get like a base intuition of what you're learning. I didn't have any of that. So I had to basically create all of the tools myself, sonification tools, accessibility tools, a bunch of different ways to map documents and inaccessible mathematical symbols into accessible form. And at UQ, thankfully, there's the disability department, which is, allocates, different tutors who are students themselves. And you get a certain amount of hours and you try to kind of figure out this whole accessibility issue and do things with it. That sort of made me become a bit of a manager because I had to not only manage my courses, but I also had to manage, a team of people. That means like a disability supervisor, make sure that I get allocated enough amount of hours per subject. I need to coordinate things with the lecturer, who then coordinates with the disability supervisor, who then finds a disability tutor. And then I have to manage the tutor and manage my time with the tutor. So this is a lot of work on the get-go, but it's worth taking the time to understand that system because it will be beneficial to you later down the track. So as a result of all the sonification tools that I've written, I just want to show you a bit what I've been going through as an extracurricular activity while I was studying. And this extracurricular activity also helped me in my studies because it creates this feedback loop between what I'm learning and applying it in real life and then putting it back into what I'm learning. Lucia, what's the title?
Sorry, I was muted. The title is Going into Space.
Okay, gotcha. So this is an augmented reality app that I developed.
Good morning.
That I created.
I see this is your first time on board the ISS Astrios. I am your artificial help agent, Leah. Let me give you an overview of how the onboard system works. Loading training module. Please wait. You are currently located in the Southern Hemisphere. Loading ephemeride. I have now loaded Jupiter into the system's targeting display. You should be getting feedback if your SMC kit is version 7 and above. This is the Tactile Object Tracking, or TOT, subsystem. The system shoots an invisible forward vector where the camera lens is located. You can also hear the sine wave guiding you. Get closer and the tone will increase. A bit more southeast. Perfect. Now double tap to zoom in. Magnifying. You are now looking at Jupiter in its actual position in the sky through the telescopic telemetry subsystem.
So this app I actually developed in my second year, and it won the NASA Space App Challenge in Brisbane. So I think that was 2018. So it was pretty, it was kind of a condensed set of all of the different things that I learned that I had learned so far at uni. And then I applied it immediately because I didn't want to lose the knowledge. I guess maybe because I was a bit paranoid. I was fearing that maybe because I couldn't see, I had to absorb more with the studies. And obviously I spent maybe 3 hours for every hour that a sighted student would take on a given course, again, because of accessibility issues and things like that. So I had to double check, triple check, do a lot of checks to make sure that what I was doing or what I was writing was correct. And this is kind of the fallout of that, which is the ability to just build things very quickly. What's the title here, Alicia?
This is K10, a known exoplanet host star. And
Okay.
below that, it says, listen carefully for the dip.
So yeah, this is another part of my journey in uni, which is sonification. And I realized that sonification can be used for science. And so I'll make you listen to this piece. So this is very, very slight, but there's an actual dip. There's a slight dip in amplitude because this is a technique that I learned again at uni, which I used in order for me to figure out what is going on with the sky because I want to know I'm passionate about it. So, I'm curious. I guess curiosity is one of those important elements. And what I did is I ran this sound in comparison with some visual graphs, and sent it over by email to a professor at the Faculty of Math and Physics, School of Physics and Mathematics. And she invited me to have a discussion with her, and she said, this actually works. It's actually mapped correctly and everything. So I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. The courses I'm taking aren't like, in vain. At least there's something that I've understood. I can apply this technique, for something which seemingly is outside of computer science, but computer science still covers. What about the title here?
Constellation sounds.
Okay, so as I went along, I, really kind of got more active outside of uni into the things that I was doing. And at some point, I got invited
Corona Borealis.
to a
Buddhist.
talk
Magnifying.
called the Space Event. And that was held in Byron Bay. And people got in touch with me because they heard about me winning the NASA Space App Challenge. And they asked me to do a talk over there.
Minor mode.
So what happened is that I used this sound effect.
Exoplanet mode.
In a tent of maybe 250 people, a bunch of people coming from all over Australia who are kind of movers and shakers in Australia, who are doing things. And I was there basically having dinner with them, talking about the stars, but
resigning.
While we were having dinner, and just to get them to experience what it is like to be blind, but not in a bad way, in the positive way, to understand that we can pick up the senses while we're blind. So I'm referring you back to those sand dunes and the winds and the signals. What's this? What's the title?
The Holman Journey, and underneath that it says Indiana Jones in Space.
So as I continued my journey on my third year of uni, I applied, again, external activity, applied for this thing called the Holman Prize, which is given to 3 blind people with ambitions and passions about their lives. And I got selected for the 2019 one, which took me on a journey across the world. I did Africa and, across Australia and Africa and the Middle East. But unfortunately, COVID actually started, so I had to rush back home. Otherwise, I would have been stuck in the northern part of Iraq. But I was able to come back home safely. And so, again, I decided, okay, well, now I'm going to finish off uni with all of this knowledge. It really means something. That means once I actually graduate uni, I will have learned so much. Obviously, I would have suffered, but I would learn so much that it's worth actually finishing my last courses and go through it all. What's this one?
Brisbane Planetarium Surround Sound Test.
Okay. So I continued on with this, and I applied to a couple of things at uni. One of them being like the Winter Research Project bursary. And I got it with the Faculty of Physics and Mathematics to create a visualizer, which also allows scientists to understand 2D visual information that gets mapped into sound in various ways. And the result of this is kind of like a little test we did at the Brisbane Planetarium.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so if we could put the...
And 1, clear light curve, G. R, I, Z, D. Image settings, audio settings, star chimes, audio, star chimes, star. Solidifying stars. Done.
So you hear those stars.
And 1, constant. Viewport.
So if I go into...
Oh, hang on.
Design is not responding.
Hang on.
Viewport.
I don't know if we can put that on half brightness or something.
And I put my finger.
Hang on, Yuma.
Yep. Yeah, just give me 2 seconds.
Just a bit obscure. I mean, you can see what's happening on that too. So it'll make a difference.
So this is the surround. So you're passing the stars. So here we're passing the nebula. If I go a bit more in this corner, there's a couple of chimes, but if I go back to the nebula.
It's pretty impressive.
So this was a two-term research project that went on and in collaboration with the Dark Energy Survey, which is the Fermi Lab, which is kind of a multinational kind of multifunctional group of people. And I did the visualization part, and this is kind of gonna go also into a workshop, which I'm going to attend towards the end of the year in the Netherlands at the Lawrence Institute. So all of these things, are thanks to the extracurricular activities at UQ. And it takes a little bit, to look around and find those different things that you can participate in. But participating in it really allowed me to build not only kind of a CV before I even started getting into the workforce, before even I graduated, but also allowed me to create a large network of people across the world that I know, like of contacts. And this is kind of pretty essential when when you are at uni. You want to build a network so that your journey into getting your job opportunity is going to be easier than just randomly, throwing your CV around everywhere. And so at this point, with the same passion that I've got, and which has nothing to do with my work, I still continue the work that I have been doing with astronomy. And now I'm creating, with all of the code and the development that I've done so far and the versions of what you have seen in these slides, I'm now building an augmented reality version where you have this 3D print of our planet Earth without the oceans in multiple pieces that you can put together. And when you run the app, through the app, you'll be able to see all the different layers of scientific data, whether it's going to be, CO2, wind vectors, it could be anything, population density, any of those maps, you'll be able to see on the app itself. And this is something now I'm running with the same friends I've had at UQ, and with the same people with who I've built relationships, friendships. We've drank together, we've, kind of argued with each other. We got into conflicts, but that forges friendships. And now, that I've graduated, I've got a tier one, a job at a tier one company. So tier one company meaning a very, very large company. In my case, the company makes about $1 billion a quarter, and they keep recruiting more people because they need more people in order to advance their innovations. And the technology that we work on is really to allow, internet traffic across the planet as fast as possible, as secure as possible, and as stable as possible. So that means all of the companies like, the Googles and the Microsofts and the Facebooks and the banks and the telecoms, etc., rely on our hardware. So it's a pretty good job, and, I'm very, very comfortable with it. There are a lot of perks, and I'm still learning a lot. But I don't lose sight of my own passions and my personal passions. That I really want to kind of hammer that down. Is whatever passion you have, it's really worth going into it as deep as you can. My madness is astronomy, but the fall off is all of the things that I created through my madness. And that allowed me to really kind of, get these awards, get some good friends and a good entourage, and get a good job. So yeah, this is pretty much kind of the end of what I'd like to say. With the last slide, just to show you, there's these 3D prints that I'm actually running right now, and I'm learning how to use a 3D printer, although blind. And some people might go, oh, this is impossible. It's impossible. It's possible, sorry, because everything is pretty much possible if you put your mind to it. Thank you.
That last slide says our planet as an AR experience. What does AR stand for?
Augmented reality.
I thought so, but I wanted to make sure and check with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yuma, for those slides. We could everyone please send your questions for Yuma to tantran@uq.com.au or put them in the chat if you feel comfortable doing so. I have a few questions here, two that are similar, so I'll ask them together. One question, would it be safe to say that you wouldn't have developed that app if not for losing your sight? And another question is, are the ways you experience things differently as a person with would you say the ways you experience things differently as a person with disability can be a positive attribute in the workforce?
Okay, so I'll try to put those two and synthesize them. The fact that I lost my sight, I mentioned before that I had 2 lives. So prior to losing sight, I was fully sighted. I was, very active, doing a lot of different things and experienced a lot of things as well. Maybe that's the benefit. But when I lost my sight, it's the total loss of my identity, because there's just an immense amount of things that I was able to do before that I wasn't able to do after, or in the immediate, I wasn't able to do it. Like, I'll give you an example. The first time I tried to brush my teeth, I actually stuck the toothbrush up my nostril. That's how different life became. But as I, kind of started looking at what I can do, then I started going back into my memory of what I used to love doing. And one of those things was basically looking up at the sky. My parents gave me a telescope when I was 6. And the first time I saw Saturn, the rings on Saturn, I was haunted by it, like positively haunted by it. And I was dreaming about those things. And I wanted to go into space, and I became a sci-fi buff, etc. So even though I lost a capacity to do things from my past, I still am holding the baggage from my past after I lost sight. And so the work I've done with the astronomy is kind of a conjunction of the things that I really wanted to learn at uni, applying them onto something that I've always loved in my life. And the second thing, so to answer the second question, the fact that, I lost my sight has changed my identity a bit. But, whether we're sighted or not, or disabled or not, it's every one of us on this planet actually are in the search of an identity or a legacy, or, any number of things that we want to do. And I think from my experience, the questions that I've posed to myself when I was a child have matured today, developed, and, they've changed. Some of them have changed, but in general, my passions have developed and matured into what I really want to do. And it's not want to do for any specific goal. Like, for instance, when I mentioned the activities that I've ran, like that I've done at UQ, one of them was to apply for the iLab Accelerator, with an innovation idea. And then we got that grant, and then we went through the whole process of pitching, etc. And although the initial intent for us was to create something, it got into this thing where we had to learn how to do business plans and things like that. That wasn't necessarily something I was really intent on doing. Still, I took it as an experience, and I brought the experience of disability in those programs to myself, to understand the human relationships between myself and those of my peers who do not have the same disability. And I found from that point that there were other guys who were visually impaired, who were trying to be highly functional as well. And we got to understand each other, and they were on their own startups, etc. And then we kept contact, and we started comparing notes. And as usual, when you're at uni, there is some form of competition, whether competition of the mind, competition of the image, competition of anything. It's a natural occurrence in human relationships, but knowing how to navigate through them is one of the things that really defines my disability, in terms of that. And at the workplace, I don't get identified as Yuma, the blind programmer or engineer. I get identified as Yuma, engineer, just like anyone else. It's just that there's a couple of quirks that I feel is my job to accommodate, as I am the one running that experience for myself, to make it better for myself and to find the solutions so that others don't really see that disability. And, one of the best, flatteries for me, when I feel confident about myself, is when someone just realizes all of a sudden, wait, you can't see. That is one of the best things. I know this is potentially not possible for all disabilities, but it's that kind of merging or swapping between your identity and how you identify yourself, in the space of disability, and how you identify yourself in a space where you are kind of the black sheep or the sore thumb or any of those terms you might be able to use, and you might feel it. When you feel it, it doesn't matter in the world itself, because only you and the reflection of your own mind with that given scenario is going to give you an answer. And as you go through more of these, and in my case, I like to use the terminology, just bust a door and shine a light into the explosion of darkness. You could probably use the same thing for any other disability. And so identify yourself fully with it, so that you've got the answers coming to you in a much better, more kind of mature way that will help you progress.
Thank you, Yuma. I had a couple of questions that we came up with beforehand. I think you've answered most of them already in this presentation, but I'll just put this one out there, because if you could, I think you've already addressed this a bit as well, but if you could just give a quick kind of summary answer to it, because it was a question that was posed in the advertising for this event. Were things better or worse after graduation?
So after graduation, it's to summarize it, it's just way, way better. Okay. You still got responsibilities, you still got accountability for the things that you do and the work that you do, but uni prepares you for that in some ways. And obviously the extracurricular activities prepare you even more and consolidate your skill sets. And once you graduate, it's night and day. Whether it's financial, whether it's activities, whether it's how you want to manage your time, your friendships, your activities, you could sort of focus a bit more now on other activities, not just churning out assignments and things like that. And preparing for the tests and the final exams, all of that is gone. Like, once you've gone through the gauntlet and you've passed all of this, it's an absolute, it feels like this huge weight is lifted off of you because you went through the gauntlet. And there's a sense of pride that you've actually gone through the gauntlet. And now you're part of this other side, of the world of professionals who are doing what they do with their degree and, who are launching their careers. So it's night and day. Yeah.
Thanks, Yuma. I'd just like to challenge everyone to send one question, because we still have 15 minutes left. And so even if you think it's something a bit silly, could you send one question to the UQU chat, or to the UQU email address, or put it in the chat, because we still have some time for some questions, and I'll just select one or two out of what we receive. If you could please send a question if you haven't already. So from my pre-questions, I've still got the list here. You might want to, I know you've already answered this a bit as well, but we had a question that we pre-wrote, which was, what were the main challenges you encountered at university, and how do those differ from the challenges you experience now in the workplace?
Well, my main challenge was really finding peers at uni. It wasn't as easy, obviously. Like, you know, being blind isolates you from a lot of different activities, and even if you do want to go to those activities, it's you know, it's a bit of a different experience. It's not as great, but yeah, I think that was it. But you know, compounding to that, I'm a bit more older, so I'm not necessarily into the same things as other students. You know, but to counter that, in some ways, you know, a lot of students have been very open and have approached me, you know, without me going to them. And, you know, so that means that if I was sighted, the same thing would probably happen. Like, you know, it'd be far easier, I guess, you know, to make friendships and to run some activities outside. But, you know, yeah, that's the isolation sometimes. It's one of the big challenges, and the inaccessibility. In my case, the inaccessibility has been a big, you know, there were some moments where I really wanted to kind of go, okay, I'm just going to continue with what I do. These courses are enough for me to move forward and progress. And, you know, I was having these thoughts, but then really, like, you know, the better of me took over, and, you know, rationalizing and reasoning in the way that I should have reasoned, and I'm glad I did that. Yeah, but inaccessibility and social isolation were the two biggest problems.
Thank you, Yuma. We have some more questions coming through. So one person says, I have an invisible disability and have to make a lot of decisions about when to disclose it to other people. What are your experiences with talking disability during the process of searching for accessible jobs and doing job interviews?
Okay, so I've noticed that when I expose my disability, I'm already running into some people who might not be necessarily aware, or who might not have the right understanding of what a disability is. And there's a couple of jobs where, you know, maybe I would post my resume and CV, and I would specifically put my disability, and within 15 minutes, I got a rejection. So the best way to go about, you know, kind of identifying yourself with your disability is maybe kind of exposing it in such a way that does not either frighten or, you know, make your counterpart feel a bit uncomfortable about it. And that would mostly include things like, you know, putting your disability forth too much, but just kind of explaining some of the quirks. But as you go, you know, as you interact, you just go, you know, you just kind of mention something very quickly, but, you know, make them understand that it's no biggie. It's not a big thing. And some people at the workplace will try to overreach, and sometimes it could feel insulting to you. So that's when you set your boundaries straight and say, no, this is, you know, I understand this concept. So you don't have to worry about this. You know, it might not be necessarily because you have a disability. It might just be a personality thing from the other person. But you know, as disabled individuals, I think it's a good thing to practice, you know, sensing the other person's feelings, you know, like sensing how they might, you know, take a certain situation, or you saying something about your disability, and just, you know, decide whether you want to go ahead and say it or not. Yeah.
Thank you, Yuma. This is, I think, a similar question, or kind of in the same vein, at least. I'll ask it and see if you have anything to add. Someone asks, as someone with a disability, I can't talk. I am having a problem gaining employment. Do you have any suggestions? I have a master's degree in professional writing and editing.
Okay. So is it difficulty talking, or is it just not being able to talk?
I'm assuming that they can't speak verbally at all, because the words say I can't talk. I'll let you know if they say any different to that.
Yeah. If, you know, because you have a master's in writing, I am most certain that your passion has to do with writing. And, you know, you probably have like a lot of thoughts that you can collate very nicely and elegantly. And my suggestion would be to really put that forth in you know, in your resume, in your writing, so that any potential employers can understand. I mean, I'm thinking of like a bunch of different things that you could potentially do already, you know, with your writing skills. So in the case of not being able to talk, I think, you know, it's really putting it in a nice light. And when you said, I can't talk, but I've got a master's in, you know, in professional writing, that already, like, one negates the other already. And I'd be like, okay, I'm curious to know more. You know, I'm curious to see what kind of stuff you like writing, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, trying to engage the other person into those kind of discussions, even if it's through writing and messaging and things like that, I think will be a good idea. And, you know, put it in your CV. Anything that you've written, anything, you know, that you could share to other people in the world, or if you have like something, you know, nice to say about an event, if, you know, all of these things, like if you could explore how you could harness the technologies that exist on the internet right now for you to share these things without necessarily having to speak, I think it would be a great thing. You know, any WhatsApp groups that have to do with writing, you know, WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, I'm sure you do some of these, but, you know, keep at it and, you know, keep a record or a trace of where your own participation actually brought value to the group. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, Yuma, keeping a record of when your participation brought value. I think that's something that all of us could benefit from doing. I'm going to make a mental note of that myself. We have another question, and I'll just ask Tan, if you have any more that you've received via email, could you send them now? Because we'll wrap up. We'll have a couple of questions and we'll finish. So this question is, a lot of work you've talked about today has been regarding visualizations of space. How difficult has it been to try to work on that as someone who is blind?
So it's been very hard, but very fun at the same time. You know, the fact that I have to create nice pictures and understand a seemingly visually very complex thing. And by means of using sound, so sonification, and designing sound in order for me to imagine it, and then living the experience of imagining it from my own creation, is a very, very fun feedback loop. So, you know, when it comes to designing things, for instance, when it comes to 3D objects and stuff like that, I have to design them mathematically. They'll remain very simplistic and primitive in terms of the artistic form, but at least in the functionality, it means something. And whereas before I was very, you know, I should say, I would draw a lot. I was very, very visual. Maybe that's a benefit, you know. I kind of transferred and bled off into the neuroplasticity that our brain has, you know, the ability to transfer one part of the cortex into another for different types of functions and concepts. You know, I've fully, again, busted the door and started shining the light into every dark corner I can find and dug deep into it, not just superficially, so that I can really benefit from that work, you know, from that groundwork. It's really digging in and understanding, okay, what's going on here? You know, what's neuroplasticity? Okay, what is, there's another concept, you know, where you can actually hear colors and you can taste sound, you know, those kind of things. I really dug into those concepts experientially. I'll go out and find experiences that allow me to understand what it is. And, you know, by then cycling back into the visualization with all of these tools, I think, you know, it's not too bad. And so that means I've been having a lot of fun. Although at the very start, it's difficult. But if you pick up a guitar or let's say a 6-string bass, it'll be difficult. And you'll hate what you're playing at the beginning, but then over time, as you woodshed, you get better and better, you actually start to be able to mimic any bass lines that you like. You could pop any sound and you can just play the same thing, and you can play it with your variations and flavors. And it's the same thing with anything that you do. And in my case, I guess it's visual, you know, try to make things visual for others, but using sound to make it visual. Yeah. And this, you know, this project has actually ended up twice at the Apple Summit for Education and Accessibility. And people were just like, oh, wow. Like, you know, a friend of mine who works at Apple sent me a video, the people looking at it. And I was hearing like the immediate reactions of people. I was like, oh, that's great. I was feeling super good. Yeah. So yeah, it was difficult, but it's fun. Like, if you just say, oh, it's difficult and resign, well, that's it. That'll be the end of it. But if you say it's difficult, well, maybe I could do this or that and I can make it better, then you're entering into a journey of fun and investigation and interaction.
Thank you, Yuma. We're going to have one last question before we thank you for your time. So if you could answer this one as concisely as possible in about 30 seconds or at least under a minute. If you could speak to an earlier version of yourself just starting out on their university journey, what would you say to them?
Be open. Be open. Be stubborn. Be open, be stubborn, and remember that any negatives that come to you, whether it be through someone you've met, whether it be through the different courses and the difficulties that you encounter in the game of life, it is really nothing. It's not that bad. So if you are able to look at it that way, you might be able to turn things around and actually just surpass all of these challenges easier than if you took it as this impossible Kafkaesque situation.
Thank you so much, Yuma. I've found this really valuable today, so I can only assume that our other participants have taken value from this too. So I just like everyone to join me in thanking you today for your time and your insight. We really appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for listening in and for the questions. And thank you, Alicia, for giving me this opportunity. I hope it works for it helps for the next one.
Thank you very much again.
All right.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this event, and please check out, we have a lunch with a lawyer next Tuesday. That will be Robin Banks, who is an expert in discrimination law and was the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner for Tasmania. So lunchtime on Tuesday, we have that event happening. Please come and check that out if you're interested. Bye, everyone. Have a fantastic afternoon.
All right, see you guys.
VoiceOver on Safari. Post Zoom.us. Zoom.u. Quit Zoom. Window. Cancel. Leave meeting.